laying on a dead man chest. Ho, 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 and a bottle of rum. Plenty bacchanal everywhere. All our we living here in fair. Sheer nonsense and lunacy. Plenty thieving in the country. Every time, no reason or rhyme. Like we just can't see what happening to we. So much poverty, plenty misery. Keeping we down, nowhere to run. It's way back and now. When the people ball.
I'd like to welcome John Slingshot Drepaul. John, I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the High Commissioner of London, His Excellency Mr. Lalishwar K.N. Singh.
Thank you.
The staff of the High Commission and all of us here in London, including Guyanese who have not met you, to the UK and to the Guyana High Commission.
It's my pleasure, Carl. And Guyanese out there.
Right. John, let's talk about you as an individual. We are going to have basically not an interview. We'll have a rap session.
Okay.
We need to know each other. We need for people also to know you as an individual. First of all, I'll ask where you're usually from. We know you're from Guyana. Guyana is vast.
I was born in William Street, Kitty Village, Carl, and I grew up at number 63. Well, 64, but I usually 63 Beach.
That's on the quarantine.
That's on the quarantine in Berbice. So technically, I would say my schooling, especially secondary level,
Right.
it started in Berbice. But my primary level was Georgetown and the outer limits. For example, I skipped around a lot. I started out at St. James de Les.
Right.
Then
That's in Georgetown.
Yes, in David Street, in
Okay.
Kitty Village. Then I went to Redeemer Lutheran when they first opened. And from Redeemer Lutheran, then I went to Comenius Moravian.
Right. This has more of a these are church schools at the time in Guyana.
Well,
Yeah,
yes,
they're
it was
all,
pre-independent Guyana.
You're right.
I'm a native Kittian.
All right.
And my father, he was a government employee. He was a sanitary inspector. And when he got transferred at number 63, where the
Right.
government compound was, well, it still is, I assume.
Yeah.
It still is. We had no choice but being there.
Then you went to the quarantine.
Yes.
How did you find moving from Georgetown city life to the country, to the quarantine? How did
It was like
affect you?
a fish to water, a duck to water. My father went through some very painful period in his life
Which
with
you
a
could
very
talk about.
nasty divorce. And
Yeah.
these are things that sometimes, let me tamely put it this way, psychologists sometimes they sum it up and say, a person's outlook of life is a reflection of how he grew up
Right.
and the forces that brought him together. I'm not here to debunk that. I'm not even here to edify it or put it in any kind of way. What I do know, though, I am who I am based on what I did for myself.
Right. So would you say that moving into the quarantine and on those experiences has catapulted you into the arena of your songwriting? Because from there, of course, you moved on from school work. You went into. I should ask before that, what happened after? Because you left school. Where did you move on to then? After
Well,
that?
let me just back from there. When I spoke of my father going through a very painful period with a nasty divorce, and he got remarried,
Right.
and that is the straw that broke the camel's back.
Right.
Because I came out of a stepmother environment, and the moment he got transferred to Berbice, about 6 months or 4 months after, I think it was 3 months to be exact, I got thrown out of the house.
Wow.
So at the age of 13, going on to 14, I built a beach shack with coconut branches.
Okay.
Because I came home from school and my clothes are outside.
Right.
So today, as a matter of fact, I don't know where my sisters are.
Okay.
I don't know exactly where they are, where my mother is, and all that kind of good stuff. For all I know, they're dead. But I do know my father and my stepmother, they're dead. And the irony of everything, even though I was put out of the home to fend for myself at such an early age, do you know I sponsored my father and stepmother?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
What was it like living in Babisa? Because I mean, you now had to. I mean, like, did you do things like, of course, rice? Because I think I know the Berbice area in Guyana is more or less rice cutting, cane cutting, rice cutting more or less, rice plantation.
It was.
Did you get involved into that?
Yes,
as well?
yes. As a kid, we look forward, especially when school is off. It was like an adventure. You create. I'm speaking on my perspective. I'm not using a brush to label everybody.
Right.
For example, I would create games
Okay.
to alleviate that loneliness.
Uh-huh.
This is in hindsight,
Yeah.
because as I got older and I realized what happened to me,
Right.
and that's why I said I'm not here to uplift any psychologist or any kind of whoever, but I did things that I could sit here today and not traumatized.
Yeah.
I am whom, like I said, I am here. How
Would you
come I
say-
was not a dropout? How come I'm not, like we would say, a stray boy?
Right.
How come I wasn't on Brickdam?
You learned from those experiences.
Yes.
It built you.
But you know what's so fortunate for me? It was total strangers that reached out, Carl,
Okay.
because the baddies of the village, they took care of me.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't name. You got to read my book. It's
Oh,
called
yes.
Slingshot, from number 63 Beach to Madison Square Garden.
Right. So there's
Hey.
an autobiography coming out.
Yes,
I
yeah,
would say.
not an, it is, but it is going to trace my musical life.
Okay.
But inside, it will have a lot of insightful things
Okay.
that will add impetus to what I have to write afterwards and what I will be writing before.
Have you got any intention of releasing any of your DVD videos of so of? Because I had a preview of some of them, and
Oh,
it's
thank you.
really nostalgic. I've got to admit that a few people have seen it, and it sort of brought them back. Have you got any idea of bringing that out in the future?
When we set out to do our musical videos, there was an Italian guy, he was the engineer that was doing all these editing, because I'm not technically inclined. And he said this, he said, Slingshot, what you're doing is fantastic. Your videos is not a regular video like how people go out there and all you're seeing is these cock up and wine and these dancing and what have you. Here it is, you are bringing regular people, things that you could actually feel. It's not the tourist Guyana. It's regular, but not at the same time knocking our country.
Yes.
And this is something I want to address, and if the High Commission here can do it, through their grapevine and pipeline and political connections and whatnot, I would hope that somewhere in the Ministry of Youth and Culture, that they could set aside some kind of budgetary plans, that people that do things the way we do it, like
Yes.
our musical videos, they could say, well, okay, here's a grant. Because right now, the reason we haven't manufactured it costs money.
It does.
And we have things, and they're showing it every single day in Guyana. Look, a guy in Scotland called me at my hotel. He went on my webpage and he knew exactly where we would be. Called me at the hotel and he said, you don't know how my father cried. And you know who's that? It's the McKays. He was once the manager at Diamond Estate. And he said, could you talk to my father? Speak to him. He would love to hear you. And these people were like, I felt myself like the Beatles or something, the way how they carried on.
Yes.
And they were moved to tears, because this is an irony where Slingshot is concerned. Here it took OBE TV here in England, UK, London, to propel my music to Africa and England. Whereas, oh my gosh, I would not get into those territory. Read my book, Slingshot, from Madison Square Garden, from number 63 Beach to Madison Square Garden. Yes, I will really be very cutting and at the same time very polite. And I hope I'm using a feather. Or like Alexander Pope, I'll use a rapier, not like Swift, a very broad sword and slash at you guys. No, I wouldn't do that.
Right. And on that note, John, I would like to say a very big thank you to you for coming down to the Guyana High Commission here in London. Thank you for being with us here in the UK, and thank you for talking with me. And I hope you'll continue to do the good work you've been doing ever so much and ever so often.
I appreciate the opportunity to reach in a wider audience, to reach a different segment of our Guyanese in the diaspora. And to you Guyanese in the diaspora, I have one little message that I leave with you. It's like I told the Nigerians and the Ghana people last night when I sang about Africa. I said, I am your lost son. I am your abandoned son. I am the son, I am the child you don't want to hear about. You in the diaspora, you have made it. You have made it just by being away. But being away does not mean that you must be away from Guyana. Guyana is your country. People like to describe it as a backward country. I say to you, you are backward if you describe a country as backward. A country is a country. It's the people who are backward if they look at a country and they're not doing things to better that country. I say give, give, and give, because you never know how it returns back to you. We did a song called The Golden Locket. It's a true story that happened to Slingshot. It was in Trinidad, my first time away from Guyana. We used to stop over in Trinidad before you reach. And as I was recording that song in the studio, the engineer said, Slingshot, we didn't record the last verse. He said, but don't go back, you sang that thing with passion. And it's a story, I talked a woman out of committing suicide with a child. In Trinidad, I was there and I heard this child crying, I went up. And when you listen to the song Golden Locket, you will hear the lyrics, you will know what I'm talking about. And I knelt near her mother asking she what happening. She said life's not worth living, I prefer dying. With tears in she eye, I spoke of her child who held she so tight. I give them much hope, promising everything will be alright. And what I did, I give her money. And the taxi, you know, the money I was in the pocket. And what she did was give me a locket. Yeah. But when the little child kissed me there with that little child, I had a locket. Anyway, about 20 years went by, I visited Trinidad for the first time again. You know, my trip. On my way to the Hilton Hotel, there's a place called Lookout Point. It's overlooking Port of Spain, Belmont, that area. There was an accident. I just had little bruises. But the car stopped. Now I tell you, what are the odds? It's 1 in a trillion. That car that took me to the hospital, when I took my shirt off, the lady saw the locket. It was that little child who grew to be a doctor. What are the odds?
And on that note, I'd like to say thank you for looking. Thank you for listening. John, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Make sure you put that part where kisses forehead, eh?
Yes, it will be.
Alone on a bench by the savannah late one evening, just relaxing, enjoying the scene, a gentle breeze blowing. People liming, some chatting, some strolling, others jogging. Before long, look me head, start nodding and I start dozing. Suddenly, I was awakened by the sound of a little child crying. I don't know who it was, so I thought maybe I was dreaming. Turn around looking, no one was there, so I kept on listening.